During the years prior to World War II, the industrialized beef industry was in its infancy. Americans were in a time of leisure due to the end of World War I. However, many Americans took a huge loss when the Great Depression struck. This put many in a time of economic downturn and offered little food to those who couldn't afford it. Farms were mostly local, and big business had not hit agricultural industry yet. Cattle and other livestock were able to graze freely and live a decently natural life. They were fed an organic diet of grains and grass and lived in good conditions. The total number of cattle in the U.S. ranged from the low tens of millions, which adequately fed our growing population. During the 1930s, the economy was suffering from a stock market crash that affected not only people in urban cities, but also people growing and raising the food which we rely on. Farms were lost due to the extremely low demand of beef. People couldn't afford to spend a lot of money for good meals. Rather, this was a time where many bought only what they needed to survive. Things looked bleak for the Americans, but a new leader, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, took power and transformed the failing economy. Instead of restoring our country to its original state, we took it a step further and began industrializing. During this time, war was in the works in Central Europe. Everything from livestock to weaponry was ramped up. Instead of local farms producing for surrounding areas, we needed a system that maximized efficiency. The strict demand for food was due to the mass amounts of rations being sent to our front lines and allies. Americans were forced to cut down the demand of specific items such as certain metals and red meats.
After the Second World War, the industrialized beef industry rapidly changed into an economical superpower. Companies chose to increase profit margins and efficiency without thinking twice about the treatment of the animals, from which their money was made. Animals are caged in awful living conditions, some not even allowed to leave a single space for their entire lives. Not only are living conditions poor, but the feed and medicines given to the animals are another issue which people tend to give a blind eye. Growth hormones and steroids are fed to our livestock, while it is known to be affecting humans who will later consume the meat. Our health is being directly affected by the companies cutting corners in order to make more money. In the early 1950s, the beef industry had began to introduce growth hormones to livestock. Scientists during the war were desperate to find a way to make cattle mature more quickly. Their answer? Steroids and hormones. In 1954, 2/3 of cows were given a newly discovered growth hormone, DES. DES was the first growth hormone used for cattle and pharmaceutical products. The newly created hormone was tested right here at Iowa State University, and by 1956, the Iowa State University Research Foundation had patented the growth hormone. This allowed feed providers to add 5 to 10 milligrams of the hormone to each serving, which was also loosely regulated. Since no regulation stood in place, industrialized farming companies used the implants and oral forms simultaneously. DES was found to be a carcinogen in 1971 and was later banned by the FDA. This is something that should stand out as a big problem to Americans. It took 15 years of animals being given DES before it was discovered to be carcinogenic. In today's industry, other growth hormones are still implemented into the cattle by implantation. Small estrogen pellets are placed behind the ear of the cattle and cause a 5% body mass increase, as well as an increase in maturity speed. This allows ranchers to save money by reducing time it takes to produce meat for the public. This is regulated by the FDA, but can we trust them after the incident after World War II?
Out of all the beef providers, there are 4 that produced almost 80% of the 26 million pounds a year. These companies slaughter nearly 30,000 cattle a day. This fast and efficient way of farming, but the animals are suffering. We have all heard that living conditions in these facilities are poor, but we never witness it firsthand. The origin of the foods we eat are often forgotten in this day and age, and this allows the producers to work behind closed doors. Cattle are forced to live their entire lives in a single pen and sometimes even live on the top of their own feces. Not only is this unfair, but it is unhealthy to the consumer. Animals which are 100% grass-fed and are raised on free-range farms produce meat that has less total fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, and calories than industrialized meat. In the 1980s, an industrialized farm was found to be feeding beef carcasses to the livestock to cut down on costs. This ultimately led to the infamous mad cow disease, which is deadly with every serving eaten. So as individual consumers, the choice is clear. Naturally raised beef is safer and healthier, so what's the catch? Unfortunately, industrialized beef is so efficient that the cost of beef they produce is much cheaper than a naturally grown counterpart. The beef raised in industrialized farms mature almost 7 months faster. This means less feed needed to mature an animal, resulting in a larger profit margin. This causes the price for naturally raised beef to be higher, turning potential customers off. The simple addition of $1 or $2 on a pound of meat might be a lot to some people, but if they were to see the facts behind the cheaper product, they might have chosen differently. Not only is the naturally raised beef more expensive, but it is hard to come by depending on where you live.
One of the easiest ways we can try to stop the use of growth promoters is by eating local and hormone-free beef. Eating these foods over conventionally raised beef using hormones will allow local producers to benefit. As students of Iowa State University, we can make a significant change in how our livestock is raised and treated by funding local providers instead of big-name companies. This is the easiest way to make a difference because anyone can do it. Certain grocers, including Whole Foods, Safeway, and Trader Joe's, all offer organic and hormone-free and antibiotic meats, along with plenty of other organic products. Choosing these stores will help companies that actually care about their livestock rather just the profits they see. Animal treatment and the use of growth promoters is a widely talked about subject, but most people are not educated on how their food is prepared. In order to solve this, we plan to make a fundraiser on campus to educate and promote the use of natural products. Creating a movement that has the potential to trend everywhere is what we need. If more people were aware of this mistreatment, more people would be willing to pay the extra money to get the best quality. Not just the quality for the consumer, but the quality of knowing that the livestock was treated in humane ways, not treated just as a mere means for profit. Being able to get a message trending is what makes many small voices heard. Much like Michelle Obama's campaign to try and get kids to eat healthier, if the message became widespread enough, we could attract the interests of politicians.
We plan to do this by creating a social media page that is solely dedicated to informing people on what they are eating. Social media is the best way to connect to the general population. People are glued to their phones most of the day, and this is a perfect opportunity to catch their attention. Creating a page is as simple as signing up, and once posts are shared to everyone and their families, people will start paying attention. We can offer giveaways that reward people for joining and supporting our movement.
If more people voice their anger towards this problem, we would start to see companies like Tyson make real changes on the matter. Too many companies turn a blind eye to this problem. If we were to make every company play by the same rules and held to the same standards, local farmers would have a better chance at competing against the big corporations. However, this does not happen without regulation and awareness. If we want to see real change instead of just talking about change, people whose voices will be heard by the masses must be incorporated. This isn't a problem one person can change, but as a whole, we can make a significant change in how our livestock is raised and treated.